In the Pentax line of 35mm SLR film cameras, the LX was the company's flagship product. It is still a wonderful camera to use if you are into film photography. However, time and neglect has taken its toll on many LXs, a common problem being the so-called sticky mirror. When you press the shutter release button to take a picture, the mirror doesn't or only slowly rises. When it finally does, the shutter does fire, so the problem is not with the shutter itself. This erroneous behavior of the mirror can be traced back to a form of padding or damper made from a synthetic material which degenerates over time and becomes sticky. It hinders the movement of the mirror and associated parts. In this video, through a series of images, I will show you where the cause of the problem is located and how to fix it. There are actually two such locations. This picture shows one of them. What you see here is the mirror chamber with the mirror already raised. The green arrow points to a small platform on which the mirror rests when it is down. This is one of the sticky points, so to speak. You could cover the sticky surface with something, as long as it is very thin, so that the angle of the mirror doesn't change. If you are lucky and it fixes the problem, then no disassembly is required. However, if the mirror still misbehaves, then you've got to dig deeper. This next picture shows the second problem area. To get to it, a partial disassembly of the camera is needed. In the following, I will show you how to do it. Here, I'm just removing the focusing screen. If you know your camera well, and I assume you do, then you'd know how to do it. This is just a precaution, not to accidentally damage the screen as I'm messing around in the mirror chamber. Then what you do is unscrew the 6 screws that hold the lens mount and remove it. Watch out for that thin brass ring underneath. Now the front plate can be taken off. It will be difficult to remove because it is somehow stuck on, and you'd think that a screw holding it is lurking somewhere, but that's not the case. It should come off if you try hard enough. What will also come out is the lens release button. Pay special attention to that little spring. Don't lose it. Now, unfortunately, we will have to remove the camera bottom plate. Easy enough, though. The screws at the two ends are under rubber plugs. Just unplug them with a toothpick. Here is the bottom removed. Why did we have to remove it? Because the lower rim of the front is slotted under the front edge of the bottom plate. The alternative would have been to remove the top, but that is obviously more work. Now the leather covering is peeled off to reveal the front of the camera body. Thankfully, on this Pentax, the leather cover comes off very easily. There are 4 screws to take out now. I had no difficulty in unscrewing them. As a matter of fact, I didn't come across any nasty stuck screws on this camera throughout the entire process. Here the camera front is lifted off. The wires don't let you separate it entirely, so be gentle with it. This round black buffer plate has to be removed too. 4 small screws to take out. Here we go. At this stage, I decided to do some cleaning in the viewfinder area, so I began by removing the lens at the top. The scale of the shutter speeds you see on the left is printed on the underside. There is a row of tiny LEDs alongside the shutter speeds. They don't get in the way when you remove the condenser lens. Here it is removed. Now you are looking at the underside. As you can see, the mirror is pretty dirty. Okay, I might have emphasized the problem by increasing the contrast of the image in Photoshop, but believe me, it was in a rather bad condition. But it cleaned up very nicely. I was actually surprised how perfectly it could be restored. If you do camera repairs, you know it feels good when something succeeds well. While here, I thought I might as well install new mirror foam padding. But back to the original problem. When I tried to fix it by getting rid of the stickiness on that tab, the improvement was only temporary. Oh, let me sidetrack for a moment and talk about something interesting. The arrow now points to the sensor of the light meter. It is interesting how the light meter works. The sensor is oriented towards the shutter curtain. Asahi Pentax made a big deal at the time of the fact that the camera measures the exposure at the film plane. But how? If you wind up the shutter and look inside the mirror chamber when the mirror is raised, then you'll see that the surface of the shutter curtain is covered with lots of white dots. The light sensor reads the light bouncing off this surface area just before the curtain runs off. That is, a split second before exposure. Interesting, isn't it? But how about when the mirror is down? You know that you can measure the light and read off the recommended shutter speed from the LEDs inside the viewfinder even when the mirror is down. So how does the light meter do it then? Well, there is a smaller secondary mirror behind the big mirror, and it projects the incoming light towards the light sensor. This, of course, means that a certain area of the big mirror is semi-transparent. You can see it if you look carefully. This secondary mirror is not really a mirror, but a moderately shiny silver surface. It must have been manufactured in such a way as to have the same reflectance as the white dotted surface of the shutter curtain. Now on to the second problem area, perhaps better seen enlarged a little bit. What we have here is the aperture close-down lever resting on some porous material. This stuff is sticky as hell. It prevents the lever to rise freely when the shutter release button is pressed. Even worse, it can start falling apart and hinder the movement of the various moving parts in its vicinity. On this picture, the shutter is open on bulb setting. The aperture close-down lever is up. But it took a while before it freed itself from the grip of that sticky material. By the way, you can now see the secondary mirror hiding under the main mirror in this stage of the shutter release cycle. After an unsatisfactory attempt to combat the stickiness while this padding was in place, I ended up removing it and replaced it with a piece of rubber. I also cleaned out the surrounding area as much as I could. The camera now works faultlessly.